Welcome, Dr. Molly, to the Dating Intentionally podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. This topic we're going to get into was such a hot topic. I got so many questions about it. But first, I want to hear a little bit about your story because the only kind of main information, the main headline I got about you was that you called off your wedding. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, people are always interested in this because my specialization is couples therapy. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm a relationship expert. So I'm known for working with couples and helping to heal relationships. And I think a lot of people make assumptions that people who work with couples or are relationship experts have perfect relationships in their real lives and have always had perfect relationships. And that's just really not the case. That's a total myth. In fact, a lot of what drives people to do this kind of work are personal challenges in their own life that we get curious about and really invested in trying to heal and solve. And so I like to say that a lot of my lessons about relationships I've learned the hard way. I got married at 37, which means that, I spent like a good 17, 18 years in the dating world, sort of making mistakes, having failed relationships. And in fact, one of those relationships was a wedding that I called off.
Wow.
And I called off my wedding after invitations had already gone out. So it was a pretty last minute thing. It took a lot of courage. And a little twist at the end of the story that not a lot of people know is that the man to whom I called off my wedding, I've now been married to for 10 years.
Oh, okay. So you got
Mhm.
back together.
We did. We
Okay.
did.
Oh, wow, I have so many questions. Was this, like, late 20s, early 30s when you called this off? Like, where were we in
So I
life?
called off my wedding in my early 30s. I called
Okay.
off my wedding. I think I was 33 when that happened. And then we ended up getting married when I was 37.
Wow, okay, so you dated between that time, like, other people?
The truth is very, very little.
Interesting.
I really spent that time, both of us spent that time working on ourselves.
Okay. So, can you walk us through, like, what happened? What made you wake up and be like, "Oh my gosh, I need to walk away from this right now?"
Yeah. Well, I think that in my life, I came to know a template for relationships, which was that I was always anxious in relationships. I was always worried about being abandoned. I would often feel a lot of insecurity, jealousy, and I never had an adult relationship where I truly felt safe. And in fact, I'm straight and I pursued pretty much unavailable men. So oftentimes they seemed available on the surface, but over time, I would learn later that was something about them that made them unavailable. So, for example, I had a very painful relationship in my 20s where I fell madly in love with someone and he with me. We moved in together quite quickly. All the signs were there that this was going to be a lifelong relationship. He told me that he had never loved anyone more than he loved me. It was a better relationship than he'd ever been in his entire life. And about 8 months into the relationship, I found out that he didn't know if he ever wanted to get married. So sometimes on the surface, it seemed like everything was going well and that I was breaking the pattern, but I kept, in fact, repeating this pattern over and over again. And so I had these repeated experiences of being brokenhearted, feeling unsafe in relationships. And when I met the person who would become my husband many years later, that relationship really broke the mold. He was committed to me from the start, available from the start, safe in so many ways, safe with my heart, safe with my feelings.
How did you meet him?
I met him. It's an unusual experience, but I was getting my PhD to become a clinical psychologist. And for fun, I was doing community theater. And I met
Amazing.
him at the audition for the community theater.
I love it.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. I just love to hear how people meet. But go
No,
on.
I love that. We're both total musical theater kids, which I love about us.
Adorable.
Um, and the musical was Camelot. And yes, I played Queen Guinevere. Uh,
Oh my god,
and because of all this, the relationship seemed very unfamiliar to me. Even though it was healthy in a lot of ways, it was difficult for me to reconcile the fact that I wasn't feeling like all of the butterflies, which I later realized were a lot of anxiety. And I sort of came to the conclusion that this relationship felt maybe too boring or
Mm,
maybe too safe or not enough passion. There weren't ups and downs, you know what I mean? And it was just so different from the template that I recognized. And I kind of told myself a story that I needed to have more passion in my relationship.
a lot of listeners can relate to this, I'm sure. This comes up a lot. The feels
Yeah.
boring, but I know that's kind of good. It feels different, it's safer, but I'm kind of where's the passion?
So I think I went on, a tour to sabotage everything good about the relationship, including going to the extreme of like, I was so ambivalent and so concerned that I, in fact, called off our wedding. And
Wow.
I was finishing up my PhD. I was moving to Chicago to start my residency at Northwestern University. And in fact, he ended up staying in Texas where I had been in school, and I moved to Chicago alone. And, then began like this period of me really trying to understand myself and what had happened because calling off the wedding, I did not experience relief. What I
Mm,
experienced was complete and total grief at
wow.
losing him. And it was just this horrible place to be in because I felt like I couldn't be happy getting married because I couldn't resolve this ambivalence that I had. And I knew that on my wedding day, I wanted to feel completely 100% sure. But then living without him, I felt like such a sense of grief at having lost, my soulmate, my best friend, and I couldn't reconcile not having a life with him. And so I knew that there was something going on inside of me that needed exploring, that needed healing, that needed resolution. And I genuinely felt like I had to do that work on my own. And in the meantime, I won't tell his story, but he had some things about himself too that he wanted to change. Really notable things, I think, that had been with him lifelong, that I think had been holding him back from having a truly satisfied life. And he took the opportunity, being alone, instead of sort of diving into a pit of despair, I think he was really wise and he took the opportunity to take a look at himself and see what about himself he wanted to change. And he embarked on that whole process. So we
Wow.
both were on this healing mission.
Yeah. So, okay, you called out the wedding because you were ambivalent. You were like, "I feel like
Yeah.
I should be feeling something that I'm not feeling."
Hmm.
And then you move to Chicago. You're both taking time to work on this healing. Did you talk during this time? Like, were you guys in contact?
We did.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
Looking back,
curious.
like that was another sign that I'm like, first of all, this person, he never gave up on me. He never shut the door. He
Mm,
always was very like curious and interested about why this was happening. He never stopped believing that I loved him and that we would be together. I mean, this is another way in which he just showed himself to be my lifelong partner, my soulmate, is that he
right.
never stopped believing in us. So yeah, we did talk.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
If someone else was telling me this story and they were like, "I believe that he's my soulmate, he's gonna be there for me," I'd be like, "Is he delusional? Like, you walked away at the wedding." Yeah, that's just my first, like, gut reaction of, like, if I was hearing a story from someone else. Was there any part of you that was like, "Is he okay?" Like, I don't know. Like, I literally walked away, like
Yeah, well, I don't think he was stopping himself from pursuing other possibilities in his
okay,
life.
okay,
I think he just had this deeply rooted belief that we would end up together.
got
So
it.
it's not like he was just sitting around twiddling his thumbs waiting for me.
And, like, trying to get you back, like, convince you
Yeah,
or you're he it sounds
no,
like he was letting you do your thing, but, like, being a presence, but without being
yeah.
pushy or pushing you one way or another.
Yeah, he was not trying to convince me, change my mind, no.
Wow.
He was just letting me know. He's like, "I know that we are right together, and I know that you're gonna come through this, and we're gonna end up together." He had a deep knowing, and honestly, several years later, he had the same deep knowing about us having kids because I wasn't entirely sure that I wanted to have kids. In theory, I did, but every time it came down to making it a reality, I was like, "Ooh, this feels really hard." And he was like, "I just know deep down that you're going to be the best mother ever." And I took a leap of faith, sort of in part based on him buoying me and having this like unshakable confidence in me. And what I can say today is that marrying him was the best decision of my life, and having kids was the next.
Aw.
So he was right, and he's very wise and intuitive in so many ways, and in ways that I sometimes had to catch up to him.
That's so beautiful, and I love that you took us from the beginning and the end, but let's talk about the middle a little bit when you
Yeah.
guys weren't together,
Mhm.
because that's the messy part that I think a lot of listeners can relate to right now. Like, I mean, we're all work in progress, right? So, can you give us just a picture of what that period of time looked like when you were not with him? How did you know what healing you had to do?
Well, at first I didn't. What I knew was that I had an extraordinary task in front of me, which is I had to complete a residency and write a dissertation.
Oh, yeah, just that old thing? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it was a very intense period of my life. And I was doing this at Northwestern University, which is a very competitive program. And I'm a very ambitious person. And so I had these, big career commitments ahead of me. But I also started, regularly going to therapy to try to sort out what had happened here and what I wanted from my life.
Did you go to a
Yeah.
specific kind of therapy?
Yes, actually, I went to psychodynamic psychotherapy
Oh, never heard of that.
because
Okay.
Northwestern University is sort of known as a major training ground for psychodynamic psychotherapists. I was training in that at the time, and they offered sort of very low cost therapy experience for trainees in the program.
Got it.
So I did psychodynamic therapy, which, is a very intensive process. And that's when I first started getting the glimpse of, oh, these experiences that I had in previous relationships that I thought were all about passion and desire. A lot of them were rooted in the experience of anxiety and ultimately not feeling fully chosen. And I started drawing a connection between those experiences to my very early childhood experiences where, I have truly wonderful, kind and loving parents, but we had very difficult circumstances growing up. My parents worked really hard to make ends meet. We did not have very many resources. And my parents had 4 kids back to back to back to
Mm,
back.
wow.
Okay. So at one point, my parents had 4 kids under the age of 5. And I was born, only a year and a half after my brother. So that means that my mom had 2 other toddlers that she was trying to take care of when I was born. And on top of that, I was a really sick kid. I almost died when I was born. So I spent a month in the NICU, and they told my parents that I had about a 10% chance of survival. Yeah, I had these very early childhood experiences of being really contained in an incubator by myself where nobody could touch me. They tell the story, my parents tell the story that there was a little hole in the top of it and they could put a finger in the hole and touch me like that. But if you can imagine just the experience of being a newborn baby, brand new to this earth, not being able to be held, not being able to be comforted, having needles coming out of every part of your body. Obviously, this is pre-verbal. I have no memory of this, but I imagine that was a very traumatic experience for any human being. And then to come out of that and to survive, which I am such a survivor and I'm so proud of baby Molly, to come out of that and be in a family system where there just wasn't a lot of bandwidth.
Mhm.
We lived with my grandparents and there were some challenges there. There was a lot of substance use problems in my family of origin, things that just took my parents' attention away. And I think that despite the fact that they are incredibly loving, very dedicated parents, the circumstances of our life made it so that I just didn't always have availability to access my caregivers.
Right.
That's a very early model to set the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had this experience of like a lot of love in my life, but not a lot of access.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of separation anxiety. I had a hard time going to school because I would get really, really scared when my mom would drop me off. So this fear of abandonment has been a part of my life for truly as long as I can remember.
Mhm.
And not surprisingly, once you know something about human development and psychology, I grew up to have these relationships where there was a lot of passion, a lot of love, but difficulty with access.
And what do you mean by access in the context of an adult romantic relationship?
I mean someone who is fully available to you and makes you feel secure and
Mm,
safe,
okay. Right, 'cause
you
if they're
know?
emotionally unavailable, you are missing that access. Got it. Yes.
Exactly. So on the surface, these relationships would seem like intense love affairs, passionate love affairs. Again, like my family, a lot of love, but then this piece missing of me feeling safe and secure, something coming up that made these people not fully available to me.
Okay, so you were in this therapy and you started to figure this out.
Mhm.
What was the next step?
So I remember, at that point, I wasn't sure at all what was going to happen with me and my now husband. I did not have it in the back of my head that, oh, we are definitely getting back together. I was truly in the messy middle because I missed him so much every day, but I couldn't resolve this ambivalence. I remember going into my computer and I was just cleaning up my files. I was trying to get organized to help me with my dissertation. I was like, I'm going to organize my desktop. I'm
Yep.
going to get my files. And I came across this file that I had written about 6 months before having met him. I can't remember where I saw it. It was a friend or a podcast or someone told me about, write down 50 things that you're looking for in a romantic partner and like, try to manifest it. And I really had done it at the time just for fun. But I found this list and I was like, oh my gosh, this list from years ago. I wonder what I put on there. And so I opened it up and I read the list and I had this like shocking moment where I realized that Brian met 49 out of 50 things on the list.
Damn. That's crazy.
And that was like a real wake up call because I was like, okay, wait, Molly, you formulated this list of all these things you're looking for in a partner, knowing you could have anything you want. You could put anything on this list. You found this man who meets 49 out of 50. And the 50th one was like very superficial. I remember it was like over 6 feet tall. My husband is like just under 6 feet tall.
Classic.
I'm tall myself. So
Yeah.
that really caused me to like stop dead in my tracks because you have everything that you say that you were looking for. And this man is actually available to you and wants to commit to you. And I really had to look myself in the mirror and say, oh, this is about me.
I just want to pause here and say every few guests come on my show with this same part of their story where they write their manifest, they write a list,
Mhm.
something, and then that person appears. It's
Mm.
such a pattern on the show. I love it. So thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and honestly, he appeared from the start and I didn't see it, you
yeah.
know?
This is really helpful to listen to because I feel like a lot of people feel very bogged down by all of
Mhm.
the healing that they feel like they need to do. They're not sure.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like, how much healing do we have to do? And we'll get into that in a minute. But take us more towards the end of this period when you guys
Mhm.
were exploring getting back together. How did
Mhm.
you know you were ready to do that?
Mm. That's a really good question. So we started spending some time together. By this time, I had come out to California to do my postdoc, and he came to visit me a couple of times, and I went to visit him a couple of times. And just my sense of longing for him and missing him never went away. So that was like a really key indicator that we're talking about a couple of years here where I was finishing my training and I never stopped loving him. I never stopped missing him. And I started to feel like if I don't marry him, I'm going to miss him for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
And that feeling started really taking over for me. And once I sort of did this work of processing these brokenhearted experience I had had of not sort of getting everything that I had needed and wanted from my parents, letting that go, healing, forgiving, journaling, what I noticed was that my feeling of desire and passion for this person started blossoming. So I didn't have to settle. I didn't have to say, well, I'm going to marry him because it's the right thing, because it's what I manifested, because he makes me feel safe. Like, I didn't have to do that. What happened for me is that from this more healed place where I had worked on my own attachment injuries, I started feeling a lot of passion and desire for him that I had been
Wow.
looking for the whole time. And so kind of the water met the sand, and I got really what I was looking for, and my ambivalence was resolved. And when that happened, I decided that I was going to propose to him because he had already proposed to me once and I broke it
That's so
off.
sweet.
And I felt like it was the right thing to do. And like I really wanted him to know that I was fully in. And I felt like I could do that by proposing to him.
I love that you proposed to him, and I really love that this is just so, so key that you, through your healing, found the passion for him, because a
Mhm.
lot of people dating right now, and you know this, if they don't feel the passion, they just go to on to the next, on to the next, on to the
Mhm.
next without really looking at themselves and be like, "Wait, maybe it is me. Maybe there
Yeah.
is something within me that I can realign, that I can tap into, and I will start to feel passion towards people who are actually interested and available and there for
Yeah.
me."
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't want people to settle. My story is not about settling. My
No,
story
I'm
is
not getting that
about
sense at all.
understanding yourself so that you can be available for the experiences that you want to have.
Amazing. So I want to shift gears a little bit here, and because
Mhm.
again, I got so many questions about this from my audience, and I think you're an amazing person to talk about this. So, what are your thoughts on this just idea that you need to be complete or healed before you start dating?
I totally disagree with that.
Why?
Because I think relationships are the primary vehicle for healing in our lives. Relationships are how we get hurt, and relationships are how we heal. My relationship with my therapist, who helped me so much at that time, that was a source of healing for me, having that relationship with her.
Right.
Um, and relationships are like a mirror. And so there are certain things that you cannot see about yourself until you are in front of the mirror. And in a healthy relationship, that becomes fertile ground for you to examine yourself with the support and love and trust of another human being. And I think that's how a lot of our healing is done.
I agree, but I think that there's this idea floating around there in the dating world, that if you are in a certain point in your journey of healing, that you could get
Mhm.
hurt more because I don't know, there's this idea that, like, maybe if you're healed, you won't get as hurt or something, or
Mm.
but, like, I don't think that's really the case.
I wish that there were a way to inoculate ourselves from getting hurt by love. But love is a very risky thing. And it doesn't matter how healed or unhealed you are, there will always be the risk of getting hurt in a relationship. And in fact, the more intimate the relationship is, the more likely it is that you will get hurt in it. But good relationships are about hurt and repair, not in a toxic negative cycle. And I know your listeners know what I'm talking about because this is a very, informed and educated bunch. But we will hurt the people that we love each other most because they're the ones closest to us. They're the ones that feel safe to sometimes lash out at. Not that that's, fair, but it is human. And so the people close to us sometimes take the hits. And good relationships are about accountability and repair. And so there's nothing that can stop you from getting hurt in a relationship, no matter how healed you are. Now, at the same time, Talia, do I think that people should enter into serious relationships at the height of crisis? I'm not like married to like a that's totally right or that's totally wrong
Mhm.
approach. One of the stories that I think is really lovely is how Gwyneth Paltrow, she met her husband right after her father had died, and her love for Chris Martin really became a part of her healing process. And in fact, he wrote that song Fix You about her, which is such a beautiful
Yeah.
song. So I think it's possible that relationships have the power to heal us even in crisis. But I also think that there's an argument to be made for if you are at your absolute most vulnerable, you do want to be very discerning and judicious about who you let into your life. And so maybe that's the time where you should be taking relationships slowly.
Okay, so let's just say, like, you're just out of a breakup. This is where a lot of the questions came from. You're kind of
Mhm.
moving on from someone, you're trying to move on from someone. When do you know you're ready to start dating again?
I don't think that the answer is cut and dry.
Okay, give us some, like, framework or just kind of
Yeah.
ideas, yeah.
I think people think that, oh, I can't start dating again if I still miss my ex. I don't necessarily totally agree with that. I think that the human heart is very fragile and vulnerable. And sometimes part of what heals us from previous hurts is new love. But look at your behaviors. Are you still contacting your ex? Are you still trying to forge something with your ex? Are you still trying to get back together with your ex? Are you still doing things to try to get closure with your ex? Are you trying to exchange your property or get them to pick it up or meet them for coffee to talk one last time about what happened? Those behaviors are signs that you are still very much in the closing part of that relationship. You're still very much in the
Mhm.
active grief phase. If your behaviors are consistent and your behaviors are separate from the ex, and there's really true, clear closure, but your heart is still hurting, you're feeling lonely, or maybe you occasionally miss them, that I think is like not something that you need to stop yourself from
I fully
going on
agree.
dates. That
Yeah.
dates can be a part of the healing process.
Thank you for saying that. I fully agree. That was my experience when I came out of a long relationship that ended in my late 20s, and I
Mhm.
was kinda checked out of that relationship at the end, so I felt kind
Mhm.
of ready to date pretty quickly, within a few months, but there were moments where I
Mhm.
was thinking of him. Is he dating? What is he doing? You know, like,
Mhm.
"Oh,
Yeah.
I miss him. Oh, none of these guys are like him." Like, I did go through all that
Yes.
too, but it didn't mean I shouldn't date. But do you think that
Totally.
people should approach dating like, "Oh," like, kind of give someone a heads up, like, "By the way, I'm still kind of reeling from this breakup," or, like, "I'm still" I don't know, like, in the throes
No.
of getting over no, you don't think people should?
I think that if it's starting to get more serious with someone and maybe you're gonna be exclusive, then you do owe it to that person for them to have a snapshot about what's going on in your internal world, you
Okay,
know? But I don't think when you go on a first or second date with someone that
no.
you need to show up and be like, "I'm still" no.
Can you say, "Oh, I'm not looking for anything serious," or, "I'm looking for a relationship?" Like, is it fair to the other person
Mhm.
if you say, "I'm looking for a serious relationship," but meanwhile, your ex still pops into your mind every day?
I don't see anything unfair about that. If it's true that you're looking for a serious
Right.
relationship, you know, if you feel like you wanna be really transparent, you could say, "I really wanna be in a serious relationship. I am still, grappling with some of the issues from my previous relationship, but I know that ended for the right reasons, and my heart is trying to move on, and I really wanna be in a serious relationship."
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It makes sense. I think there's like varying levels of comfort with this. I guess it's just like what I want listeners to take away is that you don't need to be in a place where you are not thinking about someone you're with at all to be ready to date. It's okay if you're thinking about them sometimes. It's okay if you
Yeah,
occasionally miss them. It doesn't mean
yeah.
what you think it means, really.
100%. I've been with my husband for 17 years. I still have love in my heart for people that I've been in relationships with, 20 years ago. Not that I necessarily miss them per se. It's been a really long time, but I'll have a dream about an ex
Right.
occasionally. People come into our hearts and they put a stamp on them and it never completely goes away. So, people are not these things that you can just cut off and never have
Right.
a feeling about it. The same way when someone that you love dies, you're always going to miss them. You're always going to have memories and experiences that have become a part of your heart and life. And it's not that different with a breakup or a divorce.
So true. Well, I think one area that people get tripped up is like they're comparing people to their ex. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. Think about comparison as an arrow that's pointing you in the direction that you want to go. Now, what I don't mean by that is the arrow's pointing you in the direction of your ex, because I can 100% tell you with certainty your relationship ended for a reason. Okay. If it's meant to come back around, it will, but you don't need to go chasing it. That's for sure. But maybe, if you're comparing what you're looking for, like let's say you and your ex had like a really adventurous relationship. Okay. Maybe you did a lot of travel and you had a lot of excitement, right? Think of that as an arrow pointing you in the direction of where you want to go. And maybe try to instill or incorporate some of that into your new relationship. If you try to bring that spirit to your new relationship, you might find that it's very enriching. Or you might find, oh, wow, this person really doesn't have that quality. That's something that I really value and need to have in a partner. So, okay, that gives me some important information. Or you might say, this person doesn't have that quality. And boy, I kind of miss that adventure, but you know what? I love the stability that they bring.
Right.
And so you can use it to examine your own values about what you really need in the relationship, what are deal breakers and what are not.
That's a really good answer. I appreciate that a lot. Like, it's information. It doesn't mean you have to act on this. I really feel for people who are going through this right now because it's confusing. What does it mean if I'm like super hyper vigilant of the person I'm dating and their actions, like looking for these red flags? Like, I'm only watching out, I'm just scanning. Like, are they like my ex? Are they gonna lie to me like my ex did? Are they love bombing me? What do I make of that?
Hypervigilance is your mind working overtime to try to protect you from an outcome that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So, what that means to me is you've had an experience in the past that has informed you and told you love is not safe. And now your mind wants to protect you from the experience of love being unsafe. So, it's working overtime. And that's totally understandable. Thank you, mind. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. And also, I'm okay. I can take care of myself. And sometimes that anxiety resulting in hypervigilance, it will keep going and going and going until you find something that you can latch onto that will give you the outcome that you were afraid of.
Right.
And that is the definition of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can be so anxious about something that you will create the very situation that you are fearful of. And that's why hypervigilance needs to be just taken care of and paid attention to with compassion. Like, oh, thank you, anxiety. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I've got this. I'll take the wheel from here.
Yeah, and that could be hard to do in the moment because these thoughts, the perception that there's a threat or
Mhm.
just noticing things can feel so real. But
Mhm.
it is to me, sometimes you're telling yourself a story. Like you're taking the
Mhm.
details and you're twisting it into a story that again fulfills the thing you're scared of. And you believe like, yeah, so this because they put their phone face down on the table on the date, that definitely means they're cheating. Like
Mhm.
when sometimes it's just it's just not the case at all. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, recognizing my saying for this is always like focus on the facts. But I guess
Mhm.
I like your approach a little better because you are adding in the compassion element of like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm noticing myself trying to protect myself. But
Mhm.
then what do you do from there? Like you're like, I got this. But do you bring it up to the person? Like how do you talk, do you like share that you're feeling this way to the person you're dating or is this something you kind of work through on your own?
You have to evaluate how intimate the relationship is and make a judgment call about
Yeah.
how vulnerable you want to be. If there is some data that shows you that this is a safe person who can handle my feelings and take care of my feelings with me, then maybe you do want to be vulnerable and you want to say, maybe, sort of when you get in the car that night, you'd be like, I want to tell you something that's really hard for me to say, but it's the truth. And so I'm going to bring it up anyway. Okay. For me, I love that sort of opening, and you can apply this to any difficult conversation in your life, whether it's that you're in a conflict with a friend, someone has done something that hurts you, you're having an experience with yourself that you're embarrassed of. You can say, I want to bring something up that's really hard for me to say, but I want to tell you anyway because I want to build a truthful relationship with you. Right. It's
Yes.
like anybody who's a good person, who's a safe person is going to be like, oh my God, yes, tell me.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And if someone responds like, whoa, like defensive, like that is also information. So after you have done that, then you can say, I had this crazy thought when we were at dinner that you were putting your phone down, face down on the table because there's something on that phone that I need to be afraid of. And I know intellectually that this is not the case, but some things I've experienced in the past make me afraid that this is going to happen to me again. And I think what I could really use from you is just some reassurance and knowing that there is this vulnerable part of me that has this fear and it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And then the right person for you is going to say, for example, wow, I'm so glad you told me that. What happened in the past that made you have this fear? The right person is going to say, oh my gosh, I thought I was being polite by turning it over so the light didn't keep popping off because my mother was texting me like crazy and I didn't want
Right.
to interrupt us, you know? So the right person is going to be non defensive, reassuring, and curious about your experience.
I love that. Listeners, just let's soak that in for a minute. Which you said non-defensive, curious, and what was the third one?
Reassuring.
Reassuring. I love it. Those are the green flags to look for. And I always
Absolutely.
encourage people, like, find the courage to speak up with,
Yeah.
again, like you said, it depends on your level of intimacy with that you have with that person. This is not something you
Mhm.
bring up on a second date. That's not it at all.
Totally.
But I can think of like 2
That was
months
not
in,
the vibe.
sure. Yeah, 2 months in, like, sure, like, a couple months in, it's fine. But, like, you are way better off speaking about these things because you'll learn about who they are, and it's a chance
Yeah.
for you to get closer. Now
Yes.
you're giving that person to understand you more, and I love
Totally.
that. Yeah.
And the way you bring it up, I didn't emphasize this, but I should, is the way you bring it up is super important because if you bring it up as accusatory or critical, then you are going to be met with the same type of emotion in response. You're going to be met with defensiveness. If you say to your partner, I know you turned your phone upside down because someone else is texting you, show it to me now. The natural human response is to be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, you have no right to look at my phone. I've done
Right.
nothing wrong. So if you come at it like that, you're going to get the thing that you are fearing.
Yes. That's such a good point. I'm glad you said that because I didn't think of that, and it makes sense. It's like you have to it's your job to come in with this, like, calm, I statements, "This is my
Yeah.
experience, and I'm just telling
Yeah.
you to let you in on that." I
Yes.
love it. Someone asked, does meeting the right person speed up healing, or do you still need to do most of the work on your own? I know you mentioned relationships are a
Mhm.
mirror and you can heal in relationships, but we talked for the first part of this conversation, all the healing you did by yourself. So yeah, what do you think about that?
The script and the story is different for every person, you know? I think healing happens in relationships. I think healing happens on your own, and you get to decide how it happens for you. And also, guess what? Sometimes you don't get to decide how it happens for you. Sometimes life happens to you and you need to find healing where it's available to you. Maybe you want to be in a relationship and you just haven't found the right person yet. Well, that's a great opportunity for you to do some of this work on your own, right?
Right. Yeah, really well said. So what is your advice for the dater who just isn't sure they're ready to date?
Sit with yourself, and my question would be, what would I need in order to be ready to
Mm,
date?
love
Because
that.
that's your answer.
Yeah.
If what you would need in order to be ready to date is a feeling of greater security, how are you going to get that? If what you need in order to be ready to date is to be sober, well, then that's the thing need to go work on. You don't have to make yourself ready to date. Nobody's saying you have to be in a relationship. And if you're not ready to date, that's totally fine. But if you want to be in a relationship, you have to examine what are the obstacles.
I like what you said about checking in with yourself. What do I need in this moment to feel like I wanna go on a date? My approach is more just like, go on a date and you'll know. Like,
Mhm.
because to me, a first date is just kind of a very low stake situation. It's not that big of a deal to just go on a first date. It's more like just like a vibe check. It's kinda can
Mhm.
be casual. But I guess, yes, if you're someone who's really nervous about it, has a lot of hangups, maybe you came out of a really hard breakup, ask yourself that question, "What do I need and how can I
Mhm.
fill that need?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I offer like a little piece of advice that I
Yes,
think is fairly unique to me that I just like to give daters?
absolutely.
And I think it's challenging, but I challenge you, don't drink on a first date.
Okay.
Don't drink alcohol on a first date
Mocktails and
because
coffee.
yeah,
Yeah.
keep keep yourself sober to really see the truth of how you feel because that is important information and alcohol makes it so that you don't have access. Even one drink truly makes it so that you don't have full access to your real feelings.
Yeah. I love that advice. I mean, I think it's hard because a drink first date is just such an easy option, but there are
So is the coffee.
more than enough mocktails. Yes, it's coffee, but like
Yep.
I've kind of stopped drinking at this point, and there are just so many options. Like I love
Yeah.
non-alcoholic beers, and mocktails. So yeah, I think if you're hesitant, just try it. Just try this advice
Yeah.
out and see how you feel on your
Mhm.
next first date.
Or stay out of a restaurant or bar completely and go for a walk in a park,
Right, yeah, just don't
you
even go to a
know?
bar, I love it. Okay, Dr.
Mhm.
Molly, I wanna do a dating dilemma with you, I have 2 options for you.
Okay. Okay,
We
great.
have one about kind of from a woman who keeps dating people who are friends with their exes, and then I
Mhm.
have one from a guy who isn't sure he should keep seeing this woman based on some details he shares.
Okay.
Which one do you feel like you wanna answer?
Oh, let's hear about this guy who's unsure.
Great, okay. I'm 53-year-old male. I had 3 dates with a new lady, 46 female, I met through a matchmaker. She's smart, attractive, and career-wise seems successful. On our last date, I got the vibes that she wanted me to be more assertive and directive with planning dates, something she confirmed later. This is something I can do when I remember to, quote, switch on that mode, so I'm not terribly concerned about it. We also discussed money, and here's where a red flag came up for me. She said, quote, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. I was divorced 20 years ago by someone who married me for my money, and the scar remains. I'm currently on vacation for 3 weeks, and while we did not say exactly what that meant, we both expected that this is an early pause point for us. I guess he's referring to the vacation. Should I probe deeper on this one or just walk away?
What do you have to lose by asking, "You know what? You said this thing. I'm curious what you meant by that." What do you have to lose? If the alternative is you're just going to walk away, if the alternative is you're going to lose the relationship anyway,
Right.
don't you want to lose the relationship having gotten more information
Yeah.
so you can just know, you know, what do you have to lose by just saying, "You said this and I'm curious about that. What did you mean by that?"
Yeah. I mean, like, the whole "What's yours is mine, what's mine is mine," like, that's, like, such a, like I've heard that line everywhere on social media, I've heard it
People
on
joke about
TV,
it.
it's like it's kind of like was it a joke? How much of a joke was it? Know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely
How much
something
of a
to
joke
ask.
was it?
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity. If it really was just a joke for her, it's an opportunity for him to be vulnerable with her and share why it was activating to him.
Yes, totally agree, I love that advice, that's amazing. Can we do the other one because I'm just
I'd love
curious what you
to.
say? Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. I, 35 female, have been single and actively dating for over a year and a half now, and I keep coming against the same deal breaker. The guys I like are still best friends with their exes. There are no kids involved, but they've had relationships in the past. They still hang out one on one and don't feel that this needs to change. I've tried being open minded and got curious, asking questions, but it's not something I can get past. How do other people feel about and deal with this? It's become a deal breaker for me that I won't date someone who's still best friends with an ex, which is the exception of children. Help. How do I date when I'm so anxious about a potential partner maintaining a relationship with an ex? So this sounds like she
I
keeps
love
coming up
this.
against this and she's worried about continuing to find men who are friends with their exes.
My question is, why do you care how other people feel about it? You're very clear that it's a deal breaker for you, it creates anxiety for you, and it's not acceptable for you. This is not such a common thing that you should be looking inward and figuring out how to change this about myself. Just date a guy who isn't best friends with his ex.
Yeah.
You know, to me, it's not that serious. It's like, it is unusual for someone to be best friends with their ex when they do not have kids together. Just move on.
Do you think there's a level of, like, when you're scared of something, you create it in your life? Like, she's drawn to what she's scared of because she's mentally focusing on this fear?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to see it. This is fairly a spiritual way of thinking, but I believe that the world and life will keep presenting you with a difficulty until you learn how to overcome it. And
Okay.
sometimes we keep coming up against the same challenge over and over and over until we finally pick up the phone, answer the call, and say, okay, I'm going to take this call. And I think for her, the answer is to pick up the call and say, this is a deal breaker for me. And that's all I need to know.
Right.
Goodbye.
Yeah, just walk away. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think this isn't that common. I mean, I've heard a couple stories like this where a woman will share that they keep dating a men who XYZ. It's like, I keep meeting men who have vasectomies and they say they want kids. Like that really was a message I got once.
Mhm.
So I think you're right. It's just like, okay, the second you find this out, you just say, okay, no thanks, bye, and keep
Right.
going. And that kind of speaks to like she's scared of running into these people. It's like, okay, well,
Mhm.
it might happen, but you know what to do at this point. So there's really nothing to fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Keep a walking.
Dr. Molly, this has been so amazing. Your insight and wisdom is just so refreshing. I don't know. This was just such a wonderful conversation, and I'm sure my listeners got a lot out of this. Where can we find more of you?
Yeah, your listeners can find me on Instagram at Dr. Molly Burrets. That's DrMollybUrrets. And my website is the same, drmollyburrets.com. If you go there, you can sign up for a newsletter. And also, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll get all the updates about when my new podcast is going live.
Oh,
So
fun.
I'd love to have you listen.
Do you have a name for your show yet?
I do. It's called Kissing Frogs.
Amazing. Well, we will
Mhm.
look out for that and we'll link everything in the show notes. Dr. Molly, thanks again. This was a pleasure.
Thank you, Talia.